There's nothing like meditating on the future, writing down what you're getting as you meditate, and then have it come true. It's a shocking moment in which everyone is able to do it if guided, if taught.
Jeanne Mayell, welcome to Passion Harvest. So excited to have you on the show today, and I can't wait to our conversation.
I'm very happy to be here and to
I'd,
see you again.
oh, again, yes. Well, I'd love to start with your world predictions. If you, I mean, and a bit of background for the audience, if you don't mind.
Sure. Um, I started posting predictions 10 years ago as just an exercise for my students. And we were just trying to see how accurate we could be. And it's a good learning experience if you've ever tried it to meditate. And I have a method that I use that I learned from a teacher many years ago who's now passed on that on how to read along a timeline. And he would do it for his clients, and I did it for clients too. Like, you have a client and they want to know what their future is, so you meditate along this timeline thinking of them. And then at one point, someone asked me, there was a magazine, asked me to give them predictions of my country. This is back in the 1980s. And I thought, geez, I've never done that before. And then I realized, well, I can just think of the country as a collective, like a big person, like just a person. And so I started meditating on the future of our country, of our they wanted the economy, but and and that started this process. And I started posting the group predictions of my students as a teaching tool. And there's nothing like meditating on the future, writing down what you're getting as you meditate, and then have it come true. It's a shocking moment in which everyone is able to do it if guided, if taught. And so it's not just, the area for, quote, psychics or people with certain gifts or powers. Some people are better at these things than others. It's similar to art and creative process, but it's not the sole ability. It's some of some people. It's everyone can do this. And so what happened then is once I went online in the I guess around 2010 or so, I went online. The predictions became very popular, and I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't planning that. It was a tool for my students, and they took on a life of their own. And now we have them, and we do them regularly, and we have volunteers who look for hits, and we post the hits. I'm not making any bold statements that we are the most accurate. I will say that we do a lot of predictions, and we have talented people who are doing it, and they're using a method, and we're always honing our predictions and trying to get better at it. But it's not 100%. Like, nothing in human performance is 100%. And so I kind of scoff at all these people online who say I'm 95%. Nobody is. But anyway, so we do these predictions, and I have hundreds and hundreds of them going back in time. I would say that the weather and earth predictions are probably the most accurate of all. And versus the political predictions are probably the hardest ones to predict. And I constantly thinking about why that's true. And I think it's because
Big topic in the US right now.
I think the reason weather and earth is more predictable, and I've been very accurate on climate change, and um, not just, I mean, I've based my visions on the science. I didn't make up the idea that we would have more fires, more rain, storms, bigger hurricanes. But what I've done is been able to get the timing better. The scientists are very conservative. They have to be, really. And I don't. I just see what I feel. And so the quickness in which climate change has escalated in the world is something I saw coming a long time ago. And here it is. I think the reason we're so accurate with climate and Earth predictions is because it's I think it's less emotional. So when we make predictions, we're not focused on what we want to see happening. I think that it's easier to be objective. And I also think that the Earth it's a little more predictable because um, it isn't swayed as much by the sort of spontaneous and unpredictable chaos feelings of humans. Um, and we're humans, so it's hard to predict ourselves, but the Earth is a little easier. So yeah, we've been getting warmer and warmer winters. But for this winter, and I live in New England, we saw a cold and snowy winter. And indeed, that's what happened. And it's still freezing. It's late February and we're still 25 degrees and my driveway is a sheet of ice and I can't I can't get it to melt. And we've seen things happening in Europe and anyway, so we're good with that. And I think political predictions are harder, much
I mean,
harder.
thank you, Jean. Your predictions generally are incredibly accurate. I'm just hearing the people that are listening to this, the Passion Harvest audience, saying, okay, so I want to know my future. What is the meditation method that you're talking about? And how do I do this?
The meditation method that David Hall taught me years ago, back in the early 80s, is you simply focus on the object that you want to meditate on. If it's a person, you focus on that person. If it's the earth or the world, you do it that way. And then you spend some time quieting your mind, meditating, just I use Vipassana meditation where you go and you focus on your senses. And I even lead the group in loving kindness meditation. So we get relaxed and we start to feel loving and caring. And then I will say, it's so simple, it's so obviously simple. I'll have everybody then say, okay, I want you to write down whatever comes to your mind for, let's say in this case, it would be March 2025. And they would just start writing. And then I would go on to April and May. And I've done it all the way out to 2050. And those are fun predictions to go back and look at, and kind of remarkable at how accurate some of them are. And some of them are not as accurate because I've looked at that. Like, why are we sometimes accurate? So you got the method, right? The most important thing is, if you are just learning to do this, is to practice meditation, quieting the mind. That's one thing. Another thing is, don't get too full of yourself. when you get a hit, it's really important to remain humble, or you're going to have pie in your face. You're going to be like smacked with it's hubris, right? It's arrogance. We're dealing with mysticism, the word mystery. So no one understands really what it is. I would say that I focus on consciousness and your own mind. So I think that the practice is being aware of what you're aware of. That's what a lot of meditation teaches you. It's like thinking about what you're thinking and not getting too swept up in what you're thinking, but observing what's coming up for you. And there's a real, I'm going through the pitfalls. One of the pitfalls is opinion and desire. So you don't like this or this person, or or you really adore this other celebrity, try not to get too swept up in what you want to see and what your opinion is. There's an awful lot of opinion, and what happens is people read the news and they start projecting into the future from what they're reading. Those predictions tend to be wrong, and which is why I'm not so keen on the whole YouTube psychic stuff, because I think there's a lot of that, and of course the audience loves it because it's what they were thinking about. But what I try to do with people, and it's not a perfect process, but I try to have us not be thinking about anything and to be caught off guard while you're meditating. You're caught off guard. So you're like, what popped in your mind? Write it down. And be willing to write down things that you don't understand, because a lot of imagery that comes into our psyche is symbolic. And so you start to learn your symbols that are coming to you. And some people just hear a song in their head and we write it down. So for a while, it's a learning process of the alphabet or the language of consciousness. And it's magical,
Yes.
and really in love with the whole process.
Thank you.
And
And as you were saying that, and I mean, you kind of answered my question, but we can get so attached to the outcome, or this is what we want, and this is how we want it to work out, and this is how it has to be. It's hard to detach from, especially when we do our personal predictions. And it reminds me when I went to a Vipassana, gosh, 20 plus, I'm not going to talk about my age, but 20 plus years ago, I remember the Buddhist monk was saying, remain equanimous, not just the equilibrium and not attached to anything, which
right,
is challenging.
very
Equanimity.
right, equanimity. And I would say that on the election side of things, we did not achieve that. We were very wrong. We were very right when the person got elected. I've been doing this now for about 10 years. When the person got elected who we liked, we were right. And when the person got elected who we didn't like, we were wrong. And I think that's a problem, with political predictions. And so on the other hand, I do have a strong ethical sense about all of this. I am not going to predict, hell and brimstone and, the book of Revelations and how we're all going to be, dead in a month or something. I'm not going to go there. So if you want to read predictions that are loaded with light and hope, then we tend to do that more. And it doesn't mean that we're not always right. One thing I have discovered, though, is because I've been doing this for so long and I've used so many different people, that people who are depressed and just have a dark view of the world, they tend to be the least accurate. It's just too much negative emotion. And so they will like say all these things are going to happen, and they don't. They don't. And so I would say that I put people into a loving kindness meditation before we start predicting, because I want their view to be as I want their selves and their minds to be clear and to be full of light. And I find that those predictions come true more often. So, and I've been criticized for that, like you're too much hope and all that, but I'll stay with that as best as I can.
Me too.
Yeah.
We actually did speak before the interview. I'm going to start joining your meditation groups. It's perfect timing for me in France. Where's the best place for people to connect with your website? Plus, I will also put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, well, it's It's JeanneMayell.com, JeanneMayell.com. And that I've considered changing it to intuitivewisdom.com, something like that. Originally, it was just my website for myself, right? As a person having a website. And now it's gotten so big and there's so many thousands and thousands of people on it that I've thought about changing it, but I haven't. Anyway, right now it's JeanneMayell.com. And when you go there, you look in the menu and there's something called the Circle of Light. Now, that's not a prediction group. That is a meditation, a half-hour meditation, 4 days a week, in which you come and you sit in silence, and I'll guide you through Vipassana, and then we do loving kindness, and then sometimes, usually we hang out for about a half hour afterwards and chat. And
Nice. And this is
yeah,
a service. It's not paid for the
no,
audience.
it's free, and um and I love doing it, and I did it before we talked today, and it definitely helps you to get through your day. And if we have one at night, one is Wednesday 7 p.m. Eastern, and that helps you sleep, and then we have Monday, the other days is 10 a.m. Eastern. Anyway, if you go to my website, jeannemayell.com, and click on Circle of Light, you'll find the link there.
Okay,
If
thank you.
you
And
are
again,
somebody,
I'll leave a link in the show notes.
yeah,
So,
and
what's
or,
coming up for the predictions for 2025?
huh. I have a hard time remembering what we've seen, but uh hmm, did I write that down? Let me just think for a moment. Well, we're in the US, almost all of us. There are a few, somebody from Australia, somebody from Germany, um, Canada.
That's
I
basically most of my audience.
good, good. Well,
Geographics, yes.
it's easy. So we divide the predictions up into categories: political, US politics, global predictions, like in anything but US, um, environmental and earth, science and technology. And we've opened up the economy. So, and the last time we meditated on everything was January 22nd. So we're due for a new one coming up soon, because since January 22nd, there's been a lot of chaos and havoc in the US government, which can affect things like the economy, and I'm just not sure. But so far, we've seen, as far as the economy is concerned, um, we saw things look pretty okay, except towards the end of the year, recession. And some of us are seeing recession. Not everybody sees anything on the economy, but a few people do. You tend to see what you're interested in. And so, but nobody's predicted, you know, a a collapse, like a world collapse. Nobody's predicted that. Nobody's predicted nuclear war. Um, Lots of climate change escalating. I think I saw floods. I was just glancing before we started, floods in Europe, and I believe in April. Um, but you really are going to have to go and look. And if you go onto my website and look in the menu for predictions, and I do charge for you to see everything, $15 a month, you can see all these predictions. Anything else? I think that 2025 is going to be a rough year for people in the US, and probably people who have a real interest in Europe too, in the US foreign policies, because of our political situation is very rough right now, very rough. And it couldn't be more rough. It's the worst situation we've ever experienced, ever. And those people who are blaming the US, you have to remember that at least half the people in this country are not happy about what's going on and did not want this, but it's here. So I feel like anyone who wants to know what we think, or what I think anyway, I can speak for myself, is I think this is going to go for a while, a number of years, and then we'll move through it and we'll learn from it. And Germany got through its dictatorship, and we'll get through ours. And that's that's kind of the prediction. So you might want to skip the 2025 predictions.
Okay, so you mentioned you've seen all the way up to 2050. What does the world look like then?
Well, we've done various sessions that go, and I used to do more long-term sessions years ago, but they are still on my website. And we have seen a lot of migration coming up, starting, it's already starting probably now. I've been seeing it for years, but around the 2030s onward, world migration, I mean, I think 100 million people are going to be moving. And in even one of
To
our
where?
to climate friendly places where they can grow food, or mostly around it having to do with climate.
But to what continents or what countries are the
Well, in
migration
the
is heading
US,
towards?
yeah, so if they're in the US, they tend to be moving north, and Canada's going to get inundated until they just say, no, we won't take you. They move to the north eastern part of the country, because it's even though there's a lot of flooding there, at least there are less fires, and but there'll be fires everywhere, and there'll be drought everywhere. I mean, it's just places that are hot spots, that they literally and figuratively hot spots, where people will need to leave. And lack of water. I think one of the earliest visions that I ever had was it was around 2008, where I was looking far into the future, and I saw the middle of the US becoming lacking water, like really seriously. And it's a breadbasket. It's one of the 5 great breadbaskets of the world. So as a result, I know one of the things that I've seen in the future is acres and acres of greenhouses. And I think it's more north, like in Canada, but acres and acres of greenhouses, so that they could control the growth of food and give it enough water and keep it cool enough. I also see, oh gosh, they're going to be shooting vapor into the atmosphere at some point in order to cool the earth. And that's going to have consequences. And I don't know what they are going to be, because we're messing with Mother Nature in ways we don't understand. So, but I think that will be I think they'll do it. And I've seen visions of these, like shooting of visions of shooting into the atmosphere, like I think type of water vapor or vapors, to create clouds so that the sun's rays will be reflected away from the earth. And what I have to say, we will learn a lot of lessons around burning of fossil fuel. I think that's going to really go down, way down. But it's not going to be a utopia, because the future is never a utopia. That's a happy wish. It's going to be different, and we will learn, and we will grow, and we will adapt over time. These are just general beliefs that I have from reading the future. But life is cyclical, and humans are cyclical in the sense that nobody thought we could be where we are now, where this incredible disruption of our democracy is happening. But it happens because people forget, or they weren't born during the time when things were threatened. And so they become, they just don't realize what could happen. But I don't know if I'm answering questions. And we've seen incredible advances in medical technology. You have to go and look, because I can't remember them all.
No, I understand. You've done so many predictions. And I just want to say, we spoke about this before. When you talk about your predictions, you see it as a visual image in your mind's eye.
Oh, I'm glad
Almost.
you're asking that. They come in so many different ways. I'm very visual, so I'll see pictures, but I'll also get words, coming into my head. Some of our people just hear songs a lot. They hear a song, and that tells them and what is coming. Or there are symbols like I used to get lots of symbols when I was reading people individually, but I tend to just see, well, pictures. Like one that pops in my mind was we were doing a timeline back in 2019 or 2018 or something. And when we got to April of 2020, I saw all this, like, it was stress. It was like, woo, like that coming from the collective. And that turned out to be the month, April 2020 was the month in which in the US, especially in New York City, COVID really hit.
Yeah.
And we have a vaccine. And we had seen what happened in Italy, and people were terrified that would not be able to handle what was coming. It turns out they were able to handle it. And then I had another vision of, at one point, of that I was in this like milk truck and standing up and trying to drive over a hill. And I was just desperate that I could get over that hill in this like clunky milk truck. And I made it. And that vision it was for April as well, the latter part of April. That was when they really thought they wouldn't be able to get enough doctors or nurses, they wouldn't be able to handle all the cases that were coming in COVID, but they did. So, and they talked about the hill in a sense. And, it was a mathematical projection of the exponential increasing of COVID. So, there's so many interesting symbols that we get. And I know one person thinks of spiders as terrorists. So when she starts to see spiders in the future, at a certain month or time, she's like starts predicting a terrorist event. And it's amazing how accurate that is.
Oh, do we need to be mindful of those terrorist attacks? Is there something that, no?
I don't see that. I mean, like, I can just tell you what pops in my mind, remembering all the things. And I'm involved in compiling them. I read them all. It's just so hard to remember everything. Yeah, nothing more than what we've already been seeing. And of course, in the US, we're kind of the country of terrorist attacks, but I can't recall if we saw, I haven't been seeing terrorist attacks. It's just not my proclivity, I guess.
Yes.
But in schools in various locations, and some of our people are very accurate at picking out where, look, or the situation, like a concert or something. But no, I don't think we're picking up really big cataclysmics. I just think in general, if anybody is worried about cataclysm, they should read our predictions, because we're not seeing that.
On your website, yes.
Yeah.
But you mentioned
Yeah,
healthcare. What does healthcare look like in the US moving forward, even up to 2050?
yeah.
A big one, big topic.
Well, there's two aspects to it. One is the system of healthcare delivery, and it isn't. I don't even know if we've made any predictions on it. I mean, I can just say healthcare is my background, and healthcare administration before I started doing all this psychic stuff. And I mean, it's going to get worse in terms of who gets care. And we have the most expensive healthcare system in the world, in the US, and we're like number 16th in terms of quality and accessibility of care overall our peer nation. So I feel that's going to continue to be a problem, because insurers don't want to pay for healthcare. So that's one issue. Then there's the issue of what of the science and technology improvements in healthcare and the discoveries. And I know that we're seeing a lot of various terrible illnesses will be cured, because science keeps going, and they keep on looking for cures. And so I'm trying to remember which ones. I think They have seen various cancers
I mean, yes, cancer's a huge one. I mean, do they find
eradicated.
cures
Yeah,
or the source of cancers? I mean, wherever that may be in the body.
yeah. We have a couple of people who are really big on that. There's a woman who's a nurse, and she really sees a lot of those kinds of, that's where her mind is, and she sees those kind of things, and that type topic. And we have a whole section on called Science and Technology. And I just recall so many cures in cancers and maybe in ALS and advances in Alzheimer's that people are seeing. And we've been pretty good on getting hits in that. So I wish I could tell you
No, no, no,
everything that
that's
we've.
fine. I mean, you've done so many predictions. Do you have
Yeah,
any recall for what does our currency look like in the by
everybody wants to know
2050?
right now.
Yes, they do probably.
Yeah, don't have anything on that. And I think because nobody was really thinking it was an issue
Yeah.
a few years ago, but I am sure that we're going to be looking at that next. So we're overdue right now to do a meditation with people. And by the way, if anyone out there feels that they are good at this kind of thing, meditation and prediction and all,
I
let's
am.
get into. Well, then you can join me, and I will definitely invite you to the next session that we do. And I give some instruction, and you get a chance to submit stuff. Um, and so I welcome people. I have to
Interesting.
keep numbers down a little bit because it's so much work to compile it all, but I need the diversity of people to really get it good. I need more and more people who are different and different from each other, different in their interests. And not it you might sound weird, but not that many people who've been doing it with me are as interested in the economy and as as sort of maybe the average person out there. And so we have to invite people who really are and
Mm.
see what they get when they are forced to meditate in a way that it might be hard for them to just give their opinion, because opinion usually doesn't work. It's usually inaccurate. And um, and so, or just extrapolating the news that we have now out doesn't usually work. Um, there's a new book that just came out. Trying to remember the name of it. It was reviewed last week in the New York Review of Books, and it's called, the article is all about the prophets. But they're not talking about psychics. They're talking about the futurists, people who use data and information to predict the future. And one of the things they discovered about those people is they're notoriously inaccurate, that the future is full of anomalies. It's full of surprises and things that if you ever went to Disney World, to Tomorrow World, you'll see how bad futurists can be, because they have this whole display that was put together, I think, in 1950, of what the world will look like in tomorrow. And basically, it just looks like 1950 with lots of metal and shiny stuff, and it's not accurate. So that's why I think the method of meditating and seeing visions or hearing songs or getting symbols is more likely to be accurate than extrapolating from science or extrapolating from what we have now, because the mind is a quantum instrument, and quantum physics can go into the future and into the past. It can leap across space. So I try to get people to use that gift rather than just to base it in science or in the news, what's going on in the news. Like this whole thing about AI taking over the world and all. Um, I, I think that the people who are into AI, especially in the business of AI, they want that. And so they really push those kinds of predictions. And I'm not seeing it. So Not yet. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen AI take
Interesting.
over or that whole singularity stuff that Ray Kurzweil talks about. Um, some predictions are pushed by wishful thinking, and we're we're trying not to. I'm trying not to guide people that in that direction.
And it really goes back to more making it more of a feeling experience than a thinking. And this segues us into intuition, which is what you teach as well. So what is
Yeah.
intuition and how do we tap into it? You're the expert at this.
Well, and it's interesting to be an expert in something that is so mystical and so misunderstood or not understood that I'm just want to tell you I'm very humble in my saying that I'm an expert in intuition. I think about it a lot and I work with it a lot, but it is the most mystical thing of all, and it's very difficult to understand. I mean, what is it? And the word psychic is equal to it. It's the same thing. But I like intuition because we all have intuition, and the word psychic seems to be associated with something that only certain people have, and that's just not correct. So intuition is the ability that we all have to see everything at once, to get a full and complete picture. It's not deductive. It isn't like when you do deductive reasoning or logic, you're you're going through steps. You start with something you know is true, and then you say, oh, therefore this will be true, and therefore this will be true. Intuition is not that. It's a moment of complete knowing, instant knowing. And um, and it can come with pictures and symbols and songs and the creative process. And so it's tapping into it, and it requires a lot of humility and a lot of letting go of logic. It's nice to have some, background in the world and in science and all. I mean, I telling you that I think I've been really accurate on climate change, but I didn't make it up. I didn't make up the principles of climate change. That's seventh grade science and about carbon molecules and all. And I needed that kind of data point to jump off on. What I've been good at is the timing. So we do use some kind of logic, but timing wasn't logical. They couldn't tell. They don't know. They didn't know. They guessed. And so I just went with the gut feelings. So some of it's gut feeling. It's just more important to be surprised at what you see, to look for the unexpected, because then you're in a new realm, you're in intuition, and to go with feeling and then test yourself. I have to test myself all the time, like somebody I meet, or somebody who signs up on my forum, and I instantly, they haven't said a word, I just see their alias and I instantly feel like I really like this person. Or I can actually go the other way and feel like, hmm. And then I don't act on it because I don't want, it's not right to act on those kinds of instant feelings. But I watch and remember, and and when you need your intuition, then I do try to act on it. I don't want to get myself in a situation where I had a real red flag go up in my head, in my heart, in my gut, and I didn't pay attention to it. So,
Which we've
that's
all
kind of
done. I'm sorry to interrupt. We've all done that. And some
right.
of us
And
many, many times. Me too.
I think we do it naturally. And sometimes it's coming from a trauma that we've had, but um, it's good to like watch yourself. That's the whole process, is pay attention to what your mind is doing and watch it and try to see when you were right. And you start to find a kind of path of inside of you, a guiding path of how to have trust in what you feel and what you sense. And I'm trying to think of any, I use the tarot um, a lot, but not necessarily for reading the world future. But I do find, and I do teach it, that the visual imagery of the cards does help to ignite that part of your brain that is the intuitive part. It's the artistic part. It's in a picture as opposed to words. And words themselves, by the way, letters are pictures. So the brain thinks in pictures, and we use all our senses, sound. And I definitely, whenever I feel like I don't trust somebody who's been writing something to me, I want to hear their voice because my ears can really pick up honesty, ingenuity, or something. It picks up some sort of sense of feeling about the person, makes me feel a little safer or a little more like I can trust them. So those are all using all your senses is one method, the sense of touch and and that's where Vipassana meditation is really good because that trains you to use your senses because that's what it does is you are focusing on your body and what you're picking up. And it's the same principle. And I just have to say one thing
You
about
can say anything you want.
one of my favorite things is that nobody predicted the internet coming. And there were tons of very popular psychics, and going back to Edgar Cayce and Nostradamus and all, no one saw the internet coming except Ray Bradbury, written
Right,
in the 50s,
right.
early 50s, right after TV came out. He he wrote a dystopian science fiction future of a really dark world in which everybody had these screens in their houses and they were interactive. And the government was brainwashing them through this media. and and there was book burnings and it was pretty dismal. It was a vision of a moment in time, and time never stands still. It keeps going. And it's okay to write a dystopian future because it's just the time that he was looking at. But he saw these screens and they were interactive and people were mesmerized by them and brainwashed by them. And and I thought, let's see, Twitter, Facebook.
Interesting. It was
Uh,
incredible. That actually, just recalling it now, I think Fahrenheit 451 is the temperature at which the books burned.
right, because they were
Because
into
a fireman's job was to burn books. That was their job in this futuristic
very
world.
literate lady. Yes, exactly. And and it was the spontaneous creation of this future in his mind that I think helped him to see something. He wasn't pretending that he was seeing the future. He was writing a story. And that's part of the process of using intuition. If you really want to predict the future, um, just try to make up something that um, that just pops in your mind and do it really spontaneously. And Joan Didion, when she writes, she writes about how she doesn't know what the story is going to be. She just sees a man in the street, and then another guy comes up to him in a raincoat, and then it's the middle of a story, and then it starts to unfold. And I think that that process is a good lesson about intuition and how it appears spontaneously, and to play with that if you want to. And that's what I try to do with people. Every year I teach a 13-week course in intuition, and I haven't done it yet this year because we've been so busy. Um, but anyway, I always spend at least one whole 2-hour class on ethics because intuition is really important. We need to trust our gut, but we don't want to burn people at the stake. There was a time when intuition was very considered, um, the truth. And and so we have to approach it with a lot of humility and responsibility. We don't, if you're giving a reading to someone one-on-one, err on the positive side, please, because so much of what comes out of our mouth becomes cast in stone. It actually helps it to happen. And that's an interesting fact about futurists and the whole thing on AI, promote, promote, promote. This is the future. This is what's going to happen. And and I know it's proliferating. but think about the enabling or the creating of the future with what you see, and be careful about that, and and responsible, and above all humble, and admitting to mistakes. And this could be wrong, that kind of thing, rather than, I just cringe when I hear people say, I know it's true. And maybe I've said it too sometimes when I got really worked up about something, but I ask people to reflect on that and to be careful when they're using intuition.
Thank you. And I also hear like the underlying theme through our whole conversation is trust yourself, which,
Yes. Yeah.
oh my gosh, that's a lifetime of a lesson, but really trust yourself. And that is intuition. It encompasses everything you've been talking about. Believe in
Yeah.
yourself. Feel,
It's really
feel.
It's really the most important part of all this is, can we become authentically who we are? And it isn't, and it can't come from what everybody's told us, what our parents have told us, what the news tells us, what teachers in school tell us.
What
Scrap that.
futurists tell us.
Teachers tell us, go with what, I mean, I find the best practice that I follow is, do I resonate with what, if I'm going to listen to other people or read books and listen to what the authors are telling me, how do I resonate with that? What feels right? And of course, now, psychologists have gotten involved in politics, and I've been hired to try and manipulate the way people feel, and go with their fears, or go with their, with them. And so it's getting trickier and trickier for people not to get carried away with what they're being told, because there are master manipulators out there who will mess with you and make you think that this is what is true. But I find that meditation helps. And if you put your, this is just my belief, if you put your focus and intention on the highest good for yourself and your family and the world, like that's why I love doing loving kindness meditation, then when you are discerning what someone's saying in the news, or your parents, or somebody in your head, because it's what you were taught, when you're trying to discern the truth of that and whether that fits who you are, if you keep focusing on the highest good for yourself and your family, then you'll be able to tease out something that doesn't feel right for you. And it's tough because we're social beings, but we also are individuals, and we have to stay true to ourselves. So I do think intuition is a really important area to explore. It's where you are. It's where your self is. I like
Thank
that.
you. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, yes, it's simple, but so true. Jeanne Mayell, I've loved having you on Passion Harvest. Is there anything else you would like to share with the Passion Harvest that I haven't asked you today? And we've covered a lot.
Covered everything. Um, and I think we covered it all. So yeah, I feel good about it. I do say, if you really want to kind of start to feel, if you're really a not total novice, get a deck of tarot cards like Mother Peace, or something that is very benign and feels good to you. And um, and practice asking a question and pulling a card, and then, practice with a friend, and always remain humble. Always say, I could be wrong, and not get too, you don't want to get too like certain in the beginning. You want to learn, and I think it helps to expand intuition. Musicians are supposed to be, from studies that have been done, musicians may have the highest, or find they have honed their intuition without realizing it. And um, I mean, I was always a singer as a child, always. I always have a song in my head at some point, and listen to the songs in your head too. Even if you don't think of yourself as a musician, those songs are saying something to you. Artists, and they say they cut the arts in the schools when they're trying to save. They really should cut something else. They should not cut the arts. The arts are where, intuition and where authenticity and creativity come from. And it's not just for fun, although fun is a good thing. It's for knowing. It's for deep knowing. So I guess that's my final.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Jeanne. Thank you so much for being on Passion Harvest.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.